everybody, it's Sophie and Marco, Dish Out on the Movies, and today we are doing something different. We are reviewing a book, and it is called Fright Night Origins. And if you've ever heard those two words out of the three, that's because it's the movie Fright Night. You ever heard of it? Ever seen it? And it is by Tom Holland, and it came out in late September, and we are reviewing that. And as you know, I read a lot, so this one we had to read by hand. That took a little bit longer because you can't do anything else.
Yeah, we don't like doing that. Sophie is able to read books by hand, but I really prefer to read books by audio.
Well, I do too, because you can do other things while you listen.
And in fact, a lot of the books that I did not finish as a kid, or even in school, I was not able to finish these books because I had to read them by hand. And if I had read them by audio the whole time, I would have been able to finish all these books. And so, with this book, it was kind of like troublesome because I didn't want to read it, and at the same time, I skimmed through a lot of this book because a lot of this book is literally just the movie.
And Marco has seen the movie several times. I have seen it once.
20 plus times because it is my favorite movie. So I have seen it quite a bit. I've seen the remake quite a few times as well.
And I haven't even seen that. So
I've seen the second one once or twice. And we both met Tom Holland. And we also both met someone else in the film. And so, what did you think of the book, Sophie?
Well, I like the book except for the end. And the reason why is because I am not overly familiar with it. I do remember, because it is a pretty good movie, I do remember the things that were described in the book as happening in the movie, because I remember, after having my memory refreshed and reading the book. But I think it is true the movie is exactly, or the book, is exactly like the movie. And if I'd seen the movie 20 times, I would not have a very high opinion of it either. But I thought it was very clearly written. I didn't think it was boring at all. It moved very fast.
The police scenes were boring, though.
The police scenes were very drawn out, and in the movie, they were short and sweet and goodbye.
Yeah, it's like, why was any of this? The only reason why they had the police in this movie is because they'll be in the sequels, probably more pronounced. And so it felt like that's the only reason, is just they're establishing the police characters in this book. Like, other than that, like, they were so unnecessary to the story. And it really felt like their scenes. It's weird because Tom Holland, he wrote Psycho 2. And in that film, they had a lot of police scenes, and the police were very entertaining. And so it was weird how he wasn't able to, or I don't know why. Maybe he has a good plan for the second and third book, but for this one, the police scenes were just not very necessary. Sophie?
I just thought they were very...
What
long
happened?
And drawn out. Well, at the very end, when they're there's a nightclub scene, and the evil vampire is there, and Charlie, and his girlfriend, and Peter Vincent, and after all this stuff happens between them, the fighting, and then the cops come to survey the dead because the vampire killed a few people and because he was mad at Charlie and taking it out on everybody. And they were there for a long time and talked about it, and And I just don't remember all that. I don't remember the long drawn out and then at the very, very end, when they're at the vampire's house, I mean, it's the end of the story. They're not there at all.
Yeah, they drop off. That's why I think.
I mean, they really dropped off.
They have to be more important to the plot in the sequels, because otherwise, why else would they just drop off like that? And then, too, remember, he also did Child's Play.
Yeah, I saw that.
Child's Play. No, the first one. And Child's in Child's Play, there were a lot of police scenes because one of the main characters was detective.
Right. That's
so
right.
I thought it was strange, but regardless, I have a couple of notes. There was this really weird thing that they added where, Evil Ed, he's one of the best characters. And, in fact, one of the things I was excited for was, at the end of the original movie, it ends with, you see the window of Jerry's house, and it's all dark, and you see two glowing red eyes, and then he says, "You're so cool, Brewster," and he laughs, and it implies that he actually did not die. And so I was very excited to see what would happen with that. But instead, really, the thing that they focused on adding to this character was that when he's confronted by Jerry in the alley on his way home, all of a sudden, the book has a paragraph that says, "Oh yeah, Evil Ed is gay. He's always been gay. And he met a couple of gays in San Francisco one time with his mom, but he didn't know what to say to them." And it's like what the fuck is that? Like, what is that in there? Like, I know that the actor is gay in real life, which is fine, but like, that was so random and out of nowhere. It was just so not developed to me. Of like, I honestly think that Tom Holland should have completely just redo the story, because now, with what happened at the end of the book, they can't really jump to the future. They have to make a sequel right after this. So how do you do that with these actors? Because something happens at the end that, they couldn't just wait until they're old to do a sequel. It would have to be right after. So he should have redid the story, redone it, and had a very developed plot about Evil Ed being gay and how he always liked Charlie. And that would have worked a lot better than just having this random part where it's like, "Oh yeah, Evil Ed is gay. He never liked girls. He always liked Charlie. And he met a couple of gays in San Francisco once with his mom, but he didn't know what to say to them, though."
Huh.
Right, Sophie? I mean,
yeah,
it wasn't that silly.
It was strange, and I didn't think it was necessary.
There were a lot of moments in the book where, like, these random exposition dumps, like, just out of nowhere. "Oh yeah, Jerry and Billy," they're not Jerry and Billy, it's Jalart and what was the other guy's name?
I don't know. It was very complicated.
Fragupta or something.
Weird names.
So
they're European and they're old. So
you got Jalart and Jagupta.
Probably talking about the 1400s or something. So
and it's like all of a sudden, "Oh yeah, Jalart and Fragupta, they fought Vlad the Impaler and shit, and they were in the 1400s and stuff. Isn't that cool, kids?" And it's like, that's what it was like. And then it's like,
kids don't know about that.
It's weird because I saw the title Fright Night Origins, and I got excited because I thought maybe most of this book will be just showing them in the medieval times. And they're like, "Oh yeah, there was this Van Helsing character, and he was almost gonna kill Jerry, and Billy failed him, and he had to come in and save him. And it's like, I would have rather have seen that story than see whatever this was.
Yeah, like, they could have done that and then put it all the way up until the time that they're moving to that place.
Yeah.
That would like, work, because the Fright Night's already made.
Like the Better Call Saul of Fright Night.
Yeah, the prequel.
Yeah, the Better Call Saul of Fright Night. And you could have flash forwards to the future where Jerry is old and he works at Cinnabon, and and Amy is now
works at a water delivery company.
Yeah,
fountain.
Something to do with water, and she's imprisoned because she lives a normal life, and she's suffering a fate worse than death. Well, you have an actual vampire who is literally suffering a fate worse than death. But, so that backstory, that was cool, but it's too bad it couldn't have been the actual story. Because, as it stands, this book is basically like the TV version of Fright Night. Like, you know those movies where they have the TV versions with all the unnecessary scenes added back in?
Yeah.
Sometimes that works. Like, I watched Big with Tom Hanks, and I actually thought that the TV version was better than the theatrical one. But then other times it's like it's very unnecessary. All these scenes added in that didn't need to be there to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that describes this book perfectly. Sophie, you gonna participate in the review?
I don't know about that.
Really,
I don't know whether to agree or not.
You thought it was necessary?
If it was on TV. No, I wish that part that they had just had a book about. I mean, it's origins, so it should just be the origins, and that's it. Not a couple of paragraphs or a couple of pages dedicated. Because at the beginning there was hardly anything about it, and then they went on further later on in the book to talk about the origins, and but not that much, just a page or two, maybe 2-3 pages, and that's it. And it would probably have been better because it was called Fright Night: The Origins or whatever, or just Origins. They could have had they could have had enough. He could have made an entire book, and they had it was enough. There was enough going on at the time. They could have put a lot of made up a lot of whatever happened, their experiences. They've been around since at least Vlad, and I mean that's been a long time, since the 1400s. So I think they could have gotten enough experiences on their belt from that time to the time that Fright Night was supposed to take place. So it doesn't make any sense that, I mean, it could have been better. That's the problem. I didn't realize he'd done so many movies, but somebody like that, they kind of take a hands-off approach and they let him do what they want. And really, he should have been edited just like anybody else. So maybe he was a little bit, but they could have talked about the story more and maybe done what I had just said instead.
And then you want to talk about the weird and hokey origin of like Charlie and his father, because to me it was just it was just that was the worst
bad.
Part of the book.
And it didn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like they could have dispensed with that. Really, they didn't.
Because
it just didn't matter.
It didn't matter because part of what made his character so good in the original is it made it so much better that regardless of whatever, that he was going to have to stop the vampire.
Right.
Because he knew that the vampire existed. And to add in this corny origin where like, oh, his father saved a woman in a car accident and then he died from inhaling
fumes.
And
I wanted to look that up. I am still going to look that up. I've never heard such a thing.
You think maybe
and
part
I
of
could
it...
be wrong, but...
Maybe she contributed to the fumes with her Taco Bell After Effects, and then maybe that's what actually killed him.
I don't know, but I could see somebody, dying in a fire, even just smoke inhalation, whatever, or just getting burned to death. But this thing about the smelling the fumes, inhaling the fumes, I've never heard of that. I'm going to look it up after we do this review, because I've never heard of such a thing. So.
And then this was the worst part. He was on his deathbed, and Charlie was there, and he looks at Charlie and he says, "Charlie, always do the right thing."
And he's dead.
And he dies, and it's like, oh my God. Talk about, like, movie cliche, like fucking 5,000 with that.
Well, it sounded like Spider-Man or Superman when the dad says that thing.
No, or like
that's what it reminds me of.
Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, where he finds him dying on the street, and he just says, "Peter," and then Tobey Maguire starts crying, and it's really hilarious looking. That's what you could imagine with this scene is the dad says, "Do the right thing," and then Charlie starts crying like a little bitch, and it was so stupid, and it should not have been in there whatsoever. So, Safi, since I don't really have a voice right now,
I noticed that.
Why can't you do the talking?
Because I like the book. There were things in at the end, like I said. I don't know if you want me to talk about that yet, because you're very well versed in the book.
Well, I don't think anything else is worth talking about. I mean, it's the
movie.
Isn't.
We've already talked about the cops.
It's the movie. I mean, you've seen the movie.
It is the movie.
The movie's perfect. The movie's one of my favorite movie.
It is a very good movie. It's a good book in terms of the writing.
And I'll say this too.
Very clear and succinct.
I was weirded out because there were a lot of times in the book where he changed the dialogue of the characters, which really infuriated me. And there were a couple instances. One of them was when he took Amy to his bedroom, and there was this fucking retarded line where she says, "Where am I?" And that was from the movie. And then he says, "You're in my bedroom. It's the place you always wanted to be." And he's just saying that to like hypnotic saying that, but there were lines like that in the book where it was cringeworthy, and I was like, this is not the character. The scene was so much better in the movie. And then there was
who wrote the dialogue for the movie?
Tom Holland. That's what I just said. I read his script.
Oh yeah,
and I also read the script of the remake, and the script of the remake was better than Tom Holland's script for the original movie, which was weird because they changed all this stuff in the remake script that works so much better in the script than in the remake movie. So that was unfortunate. And then there was something else cringeworthy in the scene where, you have that classic music that they play in the movie. Well, in the book, he tries to emulate that by spelling out the lines of the song as the scene goes on. And that was just the stupidest thing, because I don't know, I felt like he could have just said that he puts on the song that fans know and love, and then they would have imagined it already. So I didn't think that worked. And then the last line that really infuriated me, although if I wouldn't have skimmed through it, I'm sure there would be a lot more. After they defeat Jerry, a.k.a. Jalart, and fucking Fragupta, Charlie says, We never would have defeated Jerry if not for Peter Vincent, the great vampire killer. And I thought that's such a corny, stupid line. It's like they just fought for their lives with these monsters, and they're acting like they just did like a child's plaything cartoon. Like they're just not taking it very seriously. Like they just fought monsters, and so I thought that was stupid. Safi, are you falling asleep now?
No, I'm not. My neck hurts.
Yeah, you are.
No, I'm not. My neck is stiff. I'm trying to get it
fucking
in.
Sleepy Safi. So Safi, what do you have to say about the ending?
I did not care for it because it was kind of, and I asked Marco because I thought he had said this, but this is in preparation for a sequel. And
yeah, there will be 2 sequels.
Okay, and so it didn't make any sense at all because it didn't sound like the person was a vampire. Maybe they were, and I just didn't pick it up. I read it a couple times, and because I was like, what is this? And I thought, oh, you know what? I bet this is a sequel. This is going to be the sequel involving these characters because they just pop out of the blue. They're never even mentioned.
It literally felt like The Amazing Spider-Man 2 when that guy is walking down the hallway and you see all the villain stuff in the display cases, and he says some like shitty ass shit like, we're building a team, we're getting ready to fight Spider-Man, and it's like this stupid trailer for the sequel. Mm-hmm. And it felt like that with like this weird character like Eliza Trace.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like anybody they mentioned earlier in the book. Like, you know, like the vampire had a wife, and she killed herself along with her family and the servants so they wouldn't get impaled by Vlad and his followers. They were putting and this really happened, they were putting their opponents' heads on sticks.
Yeah, Vlad the Impaler was awesome.
And I don't know why we were reading about that, but
about Vlad?
It was world history.
Because
I think Marco took a world history class.
No, that's not why at all.
Oh, no? Okay.
It's because when I was a kid, I wanted to do a project for 4-H where I would write a play or a movie where it would be Vlad the Impaler's life, where he becomes Dracula, and the whole play would be like alternate history where he's Dracula, and it would have been really cool. And so we basically read the entire history of Vlad the Impaler.
It's very fascinating, really.
Yeah, he was cool.
Yeah, it's very violent, but no more violent than Nazi Germany or Cambodia.
The coolest part was when, instead of like protecting his crops and water the wells from the enemies, what he did was he poisoned all the crops and poisoned the wells, and then all the enemies would die because they're so retarded they ate all the stuff.
But that really puts his own people and self into jeopardy, because then that doesn't make it. It sounds ridiculous, but I guess it all works out.
He did a good job. He's a hero.
They do have, I think, if I recall from my research, which was a long time ago, I think they have some kind of special day where they celebrate him or something.
I would like to celebrate
in Romania.
him. I would like to celebrate him too.
It's interesting, and I think his castle might be a tourist attraction. I'm not. It's been a while since I've read all this stuff, but
who do you think is cooler?
It was fascinating.
Who do you think is cooler, him or Caligula?
Right. I don't know a lot about Caligula. I know some, but not as much as I know more about Vlad.
What Caligula would do is he would take he took the entire Senate and he prostituted all their wives and he had all the Senate executed in the gladiator ring.
Jeez.
And he was awesome. And he took revenge on this corrupt Senate that was destroying Rome, and he destroyed them.
I don't know. It's like which is worse, but it's just in their excesses and their the acts that they perpetrate on people. It's really hard to say.
He declared war on Britain by having all of his army go to the beach and put seashells on the beach and do some sort of a magic ritual to declare war on Britain. And it's like, wow, he's pretty cool. It's like, see how interesting that is compared to this book? Like, where it's just like, oh, look, it's the movie with some stuff added in, sprinkled in.
He's not intending on that. It depends on your intent, on what you want to write. And he's not writing something like that. He's writing something more basic.
Well, let's talk the ending. I thought it started off pretty interesting because they don't explain how Evil Egg comes back to life, which pissed me off. But it was cool because he found a grimoire with Jerry's blood in it, and it, like, all the energy from all the people, all the dead people, like, came together and, like, formed some sort of a beacon to all the other monsters in the world. And I thought that was a great idea. And it was, like, really cool because it felt like, see, this is what I wanted to see. And then all of a sudden, they immediately take all the air out of that fun because then they go to some biatch named Eliza Trace. And it's like, who the fuck is she? Eliza Trace.
I know, it sounds like somebody from the 1600s from the United States in the Massachusetts, like one of the Puritans.
She sounds
or
like...
Or one of the town in Massachusetts where they had all the hangings.
No, she sounds like, like, what if one of the lone gunmen from the X-Files, what if they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then one of them wants to come up with a nickname for their character, and it's like, ooh, how about I play as Eliza Trace? And then they're like, you played as Eliza Trace the last time. And he's like, I like that name. It's like that's what it feels like. It doesn't even feel like a real person. And I couldn't even imagine who would play her. And we really don't know anything besides, like, she has magic and stuff. And she had a nightmare.
Sounds like a witch.
Yeah, she's a witch. And who knows what...
A real witch.
Like,
Not a fake witch that gets executed for doing nothing.
Yeah, like your mama.
Like
your mama.
Those poor people who were killed in Salem, but they've tried to atone for all that, thank God. And one man died too. He was they put rocks on him and buried him in rocks.
Well, he probably deserved it.
No, none of them deserved
all of them
it.
Probably did. They're all probably very, very bad. And
no, they weren't. I've read about it, and no, they weren't.
I know that, Sophie.
And they've atoned for all that. It took them a while, but they did, and so everything's cool.
So what would you rate this book on a scale of food to food? What's your food grade?
I give it some dirt cake that usually has gummy worms, but without the gummy worms, because the ending which is not the ending, but that's kind of a prelude to the sequel, I didn't care for it. It just it was like, what is this? And like I said, I've read it a few times to try to. I thought, well, maybe I'm just not processing it right. And because I read the book pretty carefully, I skimmed it a little bit near the end, not that end, but before it. But I really read it pretty carefully, and which I didn't care for. Again, this is reading a book like on Kindle or on a computer, where you press the screen and it goes to the next page. And this wasn't a physical book. This is what I just said about the pressing a screen on my phone, actually. And I just don't care for that. And it didn't. And so I thought, well, because of my attitude, which is bad, I would read it a few times to try to understand it better, and I didn't. I just thought it was kind of ugh. And I hope it is better than what it sounded like, which it very well could be, because he has had a lot of experience writing really good movies.
Oh yeah, we trust in his writing. It's just that it felt like this book was just not a good decision.
No,
the way it was executed.
And I'm just wondering if somebody put a bug in his ear.
Well,
and wanted him to do this.
It was weird because last year, he had originally just said last year he was going to release a sequel called Fright Night Resurrection. And so that's what I was excited, like, oh, Evil Ed's going to come back to life somehow. That's going to be the story. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, it's like, no, Fright Night Origins, actually, that's coming out. And it's like, I kind of feel like he put that together at the last minute.
What was your food review of the movie? I mean, the book. I apologize.
Well, it reminds me a lot of back when I was a kid. A lot of the time for breakfast, I would have different breakfasts because I really didn't know what to eat for breakfast. And I finally figured out protein bars are good enough to eat every day.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, if you don't know what he means by protein bars, you should. If you had a granola bar, had a couple of granola bars. Only these were probably more
protein
nutritious.
Bars.
Yeah.
Granola bars are different. We would have brats, and sometimes I would actually the next day eat a brat for breakfast. Mm. And it's like, you know, like, ew. Like, I'd never do that now.
Oh, I know.
And it's because I didn't want to eat it for lunch and have it, like, for lunch.
Oh.
So I would give this book, a leftover brat with ketchup. I wouldn't even put any mustard on it. And that's what it was like. It was like you're having something you've already had before. It's unnecessary, and you should just have breakfast. So that's my food review.
Yeah, it makes sense that Marco would review it like that because he's seen the movie so often, and there wasn't really anything in it that was new. Probably, right? Except for
the police scenes.
The police scenes were
a couple of backstory scenes.
And of course the backstory scenes.
And then the stuff at the end.
And that is setting up for a sequel. That's it. Basically, it was the movie again. So he's actually just rewatched the movie on telephone.
Yeah. So?
Okay, well, if you like this review and podcast, then please give it a thumbs up and become one of our subscribers. We welcome new subscribers and your commentary and your views on if you decide to read the book, what do you think about it, and have you seen the movie, and what do you think if you've seen the movie and you've read the book, what do you think about this sequel idea, the idea itself? You think it sounds like it might be good? So,
I don't know.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.